We are an intermediary of SEBI, licensed by SEBI to follow those guidelines that exist in the market.
What is the difference between a registered trustee and non-registered trustee? Thank you, Pratap, for joining us today on Let's Talk Business by Realty NXT.
Thanks for inviting me over on Realty NXT.
So, Pratapji, please tell us, and our viewers would also like to know, what was the founding vision behind Beacon Trusteeship?
So I was a banker. I used to be working with ING Vysya Bank as head of debt capital markets and loan syndication. So while working in the bank, I came across many trustees that were mainly institutional trustees. And I discovered that there needs to be a private trustee that takes care of the needs of the investors. And I also saw a gap in terms of the service levels. So I thought there are low number of trustees. At that point of time, only 7 trustees existed in India. So I thought there is need for more. So I applied for a license once I left the bank in 2016.
So trustee, अगर for हमारे viewers मुझे भी ये समझने के लिए trustee exactly क्या होता है?
So trustee basically एक monetary role होता है. जैसे आप क्लास में मॉनिटर बिठाते हैं वैसे ही ट्रस्टी भी होता है. बट जो ट्रस्टी इस केस में होता है एक कॉर्पोरेट ट्रस्टी है. और जब आप कोई बड़ी कंपनी कोई पैसा लेती है बैंक से, कोई एनबीएफसी से, so then there is a requirement of a monitoring agency which is having a fiduciary role. इसका मतलब क्या है? तो fiduciary role का मतलब ये है कि जब आप पैसा किसी लेंडर से आप ले रहे हैं तो you need to pay it back on time, और आपको पैसा वापस करने का जो टाइमलाइन है वो आप निभा पा रहे हैं कि नहीं, और जो सिक्योरिटी होती है वो आपके फेवर में क्रिएट की जाती है. So that's basically a monitoring role from a trustee perspective.
तो बीकॉन ट्रस्टीशिप कंपनी जो आपकी है उसके अंदर क्या सर्विसेज आते हैं?
तो सर्विसेज में बेसिकली जो लाइसेंस हमें दिया गया है टू एक्ट लाइक अ डिबेंचर ट्रस्टी. एंड डिबेंचर ट्रस्टी जब डिबेंचर्स इशू होते हैं, सो डिबेंचर्स कैन बी यूज्ड फॉर डिबेंचर्स एंड बॉन्ड्स. सो व्हेनेवर देयर इज अ इशू ऑफ डिबेंचर्स एंड बॉन्ड्स इशूड बाय अ कंपनी who's raising money in the market, so that's when a debenture trustee comes into play. So having said that, हम debenture trustee का ही काम नहीं करते हैं. उसके अलावा हम 4 और प्रकार के trusteeship roles करते हैं, which is a loan trustee, which is known as a security trustee. जब आप किसी institution संस्था से पैसा ले रहे हैं तो they can appoint a trustee, which can be Beacon Trustee or any other trustee for that matter. उसके अलावा आप सिक्योरिटाइजेशन ट्रांजैक्शन कर रहे हैं. सिक्योरिटाइजेशन में ट्रस्टी कब आता है? जब बैंक्स लोन के पूल्स होते हैं वो खरीदते हैं एनबीएफसी से. तो मॉनेटरी रोल प्ले करने के लिए उनको ट्रस्टी की जरूरत पड़ती है. तीसरा और चौथा, जब एस्क्रो का रिक्वायरमेंट होता है, कोई पैसे का लेन देन हो रहा है बिटवीन 2 इंस्टीट्यूशंस, तो you can appoint an escrow trustee. The 5th use case for a trustee that we play as a product is for AIF. तो जब आप AIF शुरू कर रहे हैं इंडिया में तो आपको ट्रस्टी की जरूरत पड़ती है जो आपके लिए सेबी में अप्लाई करता है आपके लाइसेंस के लिए, और जो डेली मॉनिटरिंग होती है, इन्वेस्टमेंट कमिटी मॉनिटरिंग होती है, वो ट्रस्टी करता है.
So coming to SEBI, Beacon Trusteeship is a SEBI-registered company, right?
That's right.
So what is the difference between a registered trustee and non-registered trustee?
So non-registered trustee cannot do any transaction which is a listed transaction for a security. बाकी सब सेम है, लेकिन वो listed वाली transactions में they cannot be a trustee, they cannot participate in that market. They can do other things.
So is there an entry barrier? मतलब anyone can enter the market as a trustee, or is there a certain regulation for that?
So basic regulation requirement is that you need to be having 2 people in your team who have the background of a trustee, while applying for a license. Then there is a fit and proper criteria conducted by the regulator SEBI, and you need a net worth currently of 10 crore rupees. After that, the fit and proper criteria, a couple of meetings with SEBI, you are then granted a license.
So under Beacon Trusteeship, there will be a mix of clients, right?
Yeah.
So as a developer, could they approach you directly, or they have to first, like how they approach AI companies for their stalled projects? तो उनको जब वो approach करते हैं तो AI companies आपको approach करती हैं for the trustee to monitor, or even the developer can approach you?
So in a trustee, there are three types of transactions we do. So when a developer is taking a debenture issue in the market, he can take a trustee. If a lender is lending to a developer in form of a loan, then they can appoint a trustee. Then if a developer is taking a transaction which is from equity or debt perspective from an AIF, so then that's the third way of appointing a trustee. So there are three ways to monitor from a trustee perspective.
So right now, what is the current projects that you guys are working on, especially when it comes to real estate, where you, as you mentioned in the beginning, where the role of the trustee is being a monitor? So what kind of projects right now you are monitoring?
So like I said in the beginning, there are NCD transactions, so debenture and bond issues by large real estate lenders. Those are the kind of transactions we handle. Then there are other transactions which are related to if a large company is lending to a builder or a real estate developer. So these are the kind of transactions we do. Then an AIF, where an AIF who's a real estate AIF wishing to invest into debt or equity related to a real estate developer. So all in all, we have more than 150 plus transactions related to real estate.
Okay. Also, let us know, like technology is playing a pivotal role, especially in real estate and in other industry. How are you guys implementing technology when it comes to having a seamless operations through so many various services of various verticals that you guys are having under Beacon Trusteeship?
So in terms of technology, I think we've been in the forefront with respect to technology. We've invested a lot in technology. It's virtually a fintech kind of a platform that we are now using. We have developed our own ERP system where any client who's coming on as a lender or a borrower, he has a independent ERP system where they can view all their transactions online on a day-to-day basis. There is a document storage system where he can view all the documents that are going with the trusteeship arrangement. So a lot of money has been invested into technology. So to help the lender and the borrower to view all their transactions.
So for such transactions, I'm sure you require proper data security also to be in place.
Yes.
So how are you managing that? So the privacy of the clients also are maintained.
So we are using the highest grade of tech. In terms of server, we use the Amazon server, AWS.
Yeah.
In terms of other technology, we have our own, there's a separate associate company, which I own as a software company, which has about 20 developers who help us build that technology exclusively for Beacon.
So what I have read and understood about Beacon Trusteeship is that it is formed by a lot of ex-bankers. Could you tell our viewers also what are the people behind this, vision, and who are these people?
Sure. So when I started, I was with ING Vysya Bank. So I had to get somebody on board who had the experience of a trustee business. So we got individuals like Mr. Ashok Motwani, who was with IDBI Bank. Then we formed a board of advisors with Mr. Surinder Singh Kohli, who was ex-PNB chairman and IIFCL chairman. Then we got Mr. Deshraj Dogra on board as an advisor, who used to be the CMD for Care Ratings. Then we got Mr. Sanjay Sinha, who was with Axis Trustee. So when he retired, he joined Beacon. Then we have 2-3 other gentlemen like Mr. Kaustubh Kulkarni. He's been a management consultant. He used to be working in an NBFC. He also joined hands. So that's broadly the constitution of Beacon Trustee. So shareholding wise, there is an external shareholder who's come in recently by the name of Mr. Sandeep Agarwal. He has 2 listed companies on the NSE. He holds about 16% shareholding. Then there are employees who hold about 8 to 10% shareholding, and the remaining is with me.
So it started in 2016.
2016.
Okay. So during 2016, that time, what was the SEBI regulation for the entry of the trustee? Like how you said, currently it's 10 crore. During that time, what was the regulation like?
So SEBI regulation was much more simpler in terms of net worth criteria, wherein you needed only 2 crores to start a trustee.
Okay.
So later on, it was upgraded to 10 crores, looking at the requirements of monitoring services, wherein SEBI felt the need to increase the net worth.
So when it comes to registered, SEBI-registered trustee, in India, what would you say, how many are there?
So there are about 12 active trustees in India.
Okay.
About 6 are promoted by institutions, more like banks, and the remaining are promoted by individuals.
So how the individual trustee differs from each other?
So basically the difference will be in turnaround times, flexibility in terms of your taking decisions. So in our case, for example, Beacon is managed by a whole lot of bankers and experienced individuals. So we take a decision on a day-to-day basis as if it's our own business. So we have full skin in the game.
So you would say aapka upper hand in terms with the competitor would be because the kind of bankers and all the experts are there in the Beacon.
Absolutely.
You guys must be having the upper hand then.
Absolutely right.
Okay. So I want to understand from you, अभी जो ongoing trends and challenges चल रहे हैं, especially in the real estate domain, where do you see the finance investment evolution has gone, and how do we see in future? What kind of predictions we can see?
So a lot of development is happening in terms of the SEBI guidelines also with respect to financial guidelines, with respect to SEBI looking at how investments are monitored. With respect to real estate, a lot of development is taking place wherein a lot of the AIF players have entered real estate. A lot of money is being raised by the real estate players through debentures and NCDs, bonds, through wealth platforms. So what these people do is any real estate developer can raise money from a bank, but they can also raise money from retail individuals.
Yeah.
Retail individuals participate in the form of a debenture or a bond. Whereas in AIF, they'll have to invest about 1 crore each individual. So there's a lot of action in terms of real estate, especially because the tendency of returns is fairly high than a normal bond. So you tend to get returns in the vicinity of 15 to 24% if you invest in real estate based debentures and bonds.
What are the major challenges do you feel right now, especially in the real estate when it comes to these finance investment?
So what we've been seeing of late is the COVID era has affected a lot of the real estate players. So a lot of defaults have happened in real estate. That is one of the biggest challenges being faced by the real estate industry, which was now, wherein a lot of real estate players, because of COVID, have faced difficulties. So a lot of restructuring is happening. A lot of underdeveloped projects are being taken over by the Swami Fund.
Yeah.
So government has stepped in. Government is trying to help out the real estate people in terms of giving them funding and helping them finish off their projects. Having said that, there is a lot of activity from others also, like real estate, uh, retail participation, uh, real estate AIFs who have been trying to lend money as debt to the real estate players in India.
True. So as you said, abhi kafi AI companies bhi aa gayi. Now we are seeing even finance investments like REIT is there,
Yes.
Invites is there. We are also seeing a lot of fractional ownership is happening. So what do you predict in the coming years? What more investment can come up in India market, especially when we are focusing in real estate market?
So as an investor who's been investing in fixed deposits and IPOs, so they have now got multiple new options, like the fractional platform regulations that have been recently announced. So even a small investor can participate in real estate.
True.
So he'll participate even with a small amount of 10,000 to 50,000. So they also can take a pie out of the real estate high return market. The second category is the real estate AIFs, wherein the larger HNIs can participate with a minimum investment of 1 crore. Then there are the NCD bond markets, wherein the real estate participation is coming from a lot of retail investors. So the market is opening up day by day for a small investor to a large investor in different forms and categories.
True. So as the market is evolving, now even the SEBI, even the regulatory government bodies are also learning, and the regulatory framework is also evolving. So based on the kind of regulatory landscape currently is going on, what do you feel the kind of challenges are there, or what kind of suggestions the government should look into, especially when it comes to real estate market?
So SEBI is doing a lot. In fact, RBI has been also doing a lot. The banking system has gone through its own turmoil.
Yeah.
So the banks have taken a call. They've set aside the assets. They've gone to ARCs. In terms of the listed and the unlisted bond markets, SEBI has played an effective and an efficient role in coming out with new guidelines every time and again. And there is a lot of monitoring happening wherever there's listed and unlisted securities that are being issued by the real estate segment. So a lot of action happening in terms of monitoring from a regulatory perspective.
So when these changes comes up, when it comes to regulatory, जो new guidelines भी आती हैं, how Beacon make sure it's staying ahead in terms of the compliance, also making ensure that the client interest is also protected?
So Beacon as such, apart from the platform we've built, we stress a lot of our time and effort on compliance. In fact, I would go to say that Beacon is infamous for its compliance activity, where people find it tough to deal with Beacon in terms of compliance. We stress a lot of our effort from an employee perspective on the compliance related to the regulatory guidelines issued by the regulators.
So there have been several changes when it comes to AIF regulation. So according to you, how does it impact to a trustee?
So from a regulator's perspective, they need to strengthen the guidelines wherein the investor needs to be protected. Since we are seeing a lot of action from a AIF perspective. So new guidelines have been issued by SEBI from a perspective that the investor is protected. So these new guidelines, what they mean for a debenture trustee is that they will have to look at more people from a compliance perspective, from a legal perspective, look into documentations much more than they used to see. So we have also strengthened our team accordingly to the guidelines. So according to the onerosity of the guidelines, we've put in a team that helps us look at every guideline with a microscope and only then apply for an AIF in SEBI. Post that, on a quarterly basis, when an AIF needs to comply, we need to see that a lot of the AIFs are sure about the guidelines and they've understood the new guidelines. So that's a new role that is being played by the debenture trustee.
So recently there have been few announcements by Finance Minister also when it comes to GIFT City, even when it comes to foreign investors. So what is your take when it comes to AIF companies like this, their entry to GIFT City, how it's going to help the investors, and what role does Beacon Trusteeship would play in this kind of landscape?
So if we see a total of about 1300 AIFs existed in India till now, till March 23. SEBI found it relevant to give the opportunity to GIFT City also. And GIFT City was then allowed to get AIF guidelines rolling. So there's a lot of money coming into India in the normal routes. So GIFT City was one more avenue that the government of India opened for AIFs. So a lot of trustees have taken interest and opened their shops in the GIFT City in Gandhinagar. Similarly, Beacon has also taken advantage of that guideline. We've also opened an office in GIFT City. So we've been helping AIFs to set up shop through the GIFT City and make it possible for them to get investments and get those investments for India.
So, जो guideline CBDT का है, where they have set tax when it comes to IFC city like Gujarat, the tax can be exempted by the foreign investors and by the AIF companies. Would that kind of tax exemption will also happen for trustee?
So, from a trustee perspective, we need to ensure that the compliances are done in GIFT City as well as what they were done in India. So from a tax perspective, CBDT keeps coming out with their guidelines. We have to see to it that those guidelines are followed. So there's a tax-free component that is being offered to AIFs. So whoever opens a GIFT City office, even a trustee like us, so we will also be given those benefits.
Okay. So I want to ask few technical questions. For that I have to read, so to make sure that the right regulation I am quoting.
Sure.
So I want to know currently what is your opinion on the SEBI recent circular that was about issuers and the appointment of nominee directors. The circular highlights the absence of statutory mandate in certain cases, preventing issuers from amending their principal documents. So in your view, how can regulation address such situation while ensuring necessary compliance without unduly burdening the issuers?
Okay, so I'd like to start with a brief background on the provision of appointment of a nominee director. The right to appoint a nominee director by a debenture trustee was initially made available under the updated DT regulations of 2003. Subsequently, the regulations were then updated in 2017, which specified the appointment of a nominee director on occurrence of 2 consecutive defaults in payment of interest and default in creation of a security, and or default in redemption. Then after that, similar provisions were incorporated in Regulation 23(6) of the SEBI guidelines, 21 NCS regulations, to place an obligation on the issuer to amend articles of association that requires its board of directors to appoint a director, a person nominated by the debenture trustee, and make necessary changes in executed debenture trust deeds. To further strengthen this provision, it has been mandated that the issuer will appoint a nominee director within 1 month of receiving such a request from the debenture trustee. July 4, 23, that is being referred by you, only provides a relaxation for issuers that are not companies incorporated under different statutes or are also under the purview of the regulator for other issuances, whose director with prior approval, if there is a prior approval required from the President of India, then that's a different case to case. So there is a differentiation for those who are not applicable to these guidelines. So there are three such types of issuers.
Mm.
So I'll give you a layman example, like the NHAI.
Yeah.
NHAI has come out through the NHAI Act. There are others like the PFC, REC.
Mm.
So when a sovereign issuer is involved, then they may not be able to comply to these guidelines. So, but SEBI wants something to be done. So what they've done is they need a letter from them saying that we will comply with these guidelines. But what we'll do is we'll appoint a director from our board as a nominee director. So they don't need to get a external nominee director, they'll do it themselves. But they need to give that undertaking to us at the time of the issue. So that's the difference.
So just for my understanding, I want to know, like you quoted earlier, there are a few registered SEBI-registered, debenture trustee companies. When it comes to such companies, first of all, is there any kind of rating in place for these companies?
So if a issuer wants to raise money, there are listed, unlisted, rated, unrated. All kinds of issuers come to raise money in the market.
So what do you mean by rated, unrated?
So when you ask for rating, meaning you have to be rated by a rating agency.
Yeah.
So in India, if you go to see if you are better rated, like a AAA.
Yeah.
So you get money in the bond markets at the cheapest price, even cheaper than a loan. That's why most of the issuers who are AAA, AA, they come to the bond markets.
Okay. And that is that can be given to even the regulated and unregulated companies?
Yes.
Okay. So coming to the next question, which I want to understand from you, how do you envision the role of debenture trustees evolving in overseeing the events mentioned in Regulation 15(1)(e), and what challenges and opportunities might arise for debenture trustee in fulfilling this responsibility?
So from that guideline that you mentioned, 15(1)(e), now the debenture trustee's role is to, in the issuers that have been exempted, they have to see to it that these guidelines are followed by giving an undertaking. In case of the others, they need to appoint a nominee director within 1 month of the default that is occurred. So this guideline is now pushed on to the debenture trustee. The debenture trustee has the onus of getting it followed and complied with. So that onus is shifted to the debenture trustee to get it done.
Okay. Again, just for my understanding, I want to know, like how we discussed on the rating front, when it comes to the active debenture trustee, is there a kind of a guideline where the trustee is not being active, or a guideline where they are not active for a year or 18 months, how we discussed on AI having a certain regulation, given by SEBI, कि अगर आप 18 महीने तक active नहीं है तो you need to give the answer why you're not active, or you need to wind up. Is that similar for debenture trustee or no?
So debenture trustees need to pay a fee every 3 years.
Okay.
And before which there is an audit conducted. It used to be conducted every 2 or 3 years previously. But currently the SEBI audits are being conducted every year. In fact, I would say at any point of time, SEBI may ask you on the follow-up, or they may come and visit you if you're following all the SEBI guidelines or not.
Okay.
So in fact, there could be a concurrent audit also. So there is a better compliance that is needed at the debenture trustee level, as well as the company who is issuing a bond or a debenture in India. So SEBI has laid out guidelines, but now there is stricter enforcement also that is being done by SEBI. So that augurs well for the markets also.
So when you say stricter enforcement is there, is it to make sure that right companies or right trustee comes in the market, or why there's more stricter, especially when it comes to debenture trustee?
So debenture trustee is a extended arm of the SEBI, which is the regulator. Now SEBI can't be doing everything. So they've appointed these arms who can help them to regulate the markets. So we are an intermediary of SEBI, licensed by SEBI, to follow those guidelines that exist in the market. Now, if you don't follow these guidelines, there is SEBI who will come and reprimand you. So, also from the issuer's perspective, there needs to be a lot of compliance. So, previously we used to see that there is less importance of compliance in India, but that compliance is dramatically increased now over the last couple of years. So that's the role SEBI also wants to play. In fact, RBI also wants to play that role. So effectively, the extended arms of SEBI, the intermediaries like us, we will have to play that role on their behalf.
True. Okay. So in looking into the future, how do you see the role of SEBI and other regulatory bodies evolving to adopt to the changing dynamics of financial industry and address the specific challenges faced by issuers in different categories?
So SEBI and the other regulators have become extremely active over the last couple of years. Not to say that they were not active, but they've become fairly active now. And also they are much ahead of their peers across the world. In fact, coming out with regulations on Bitcoin, and stuff like that, cryptocurrency, SDI guidelines on securitization. So the regulators in India have started thinking much ahead of the regulators worldwide.
True. So now we are going to start our rapid fire question. That is a very fun round where I don't want you to think twice while answering the question. So let's begin with our famous rapid fire questions. Yeah.
Sure.
So if you have to describe your leadership style in 3 words, what it would be?
Freedom, freedom, and freedom.
Okay. So what do you mean by the freedom?
So my approach is you can't do everything. So you have to empower your people.
True.
Only then, when they get freedom, will they be able to work for you and for themselves. And also you have to make them empowered. At the same time, you need to give them the adequate remuneration. So in fact, like Beacon, we've distributed stakes to our employees. So that's the crux of it.
So stocks, real estate or gold, which do you think offers the best potential return in the current market?
So gold has been always a hedge for the world, and India has the largest hoards of gold. Every family looks at gold as a hedge in difficult times. Stocks have been given the best returns worldwide. Real estate has been topsy-turvy because of COVID, I guess. But I guess I would go with stocks, but in the long term.
Okay. Your favorite Indian dish that you can't resist no matter how busy you are?
So basically, I'm an Indian at heart. So dal chawal is the best dish I love.
Any specific dal you prefer?
No, normal pili wali dal or
tur dal. Okay.
Or jeera rice ho to tadke wala.
So bull market or bear market, which one do you find more challenging and why?
I'm a bull at heart. So I started my career as a jobber in the Ahmedabad Stock Exchange. So I've always been a bull. Bear markets are difficult times and I kind of don't connect with them.
So which one is your favorite book and why do you resonate with it?
So my favorite book is the one given by my ex-boss, Sanjay Bhasin, when I was at J. Morgan Stanley, The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. So that's a Bible I've always used whenever I need some guidance. In fact, that's the most gifted book by me to any CEO or a CFO.
Name a financial trend or strategy that you find particularly intriguing right now.
So currently, I'm looking at a particular business. So I've started 6 other businesses, but this one I think will make major changes to how companies operate. Is compliance management. So that's something which will dramatically change how companies operate, how markets operate. There are lots of scams that have come out in the past. So compliance is the one word that I think will become the most important from the corporate perspective.
If you could have dinner with any financial guru, dead or alive, who would it be?
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett, yeah. And what would you ask from him?
I'd ask him his strategy, how he's how he's putting his bets, what is the 3 things he looks at when he invests into a company. That's the knowledge I would need for me.
So one financial advice you wish you had received earlier in your career?
In terms of entrepreneurship, I'll give is when you're starting something and when you want to start as an entrepreneur, you need at least 18 months of runway. You should have a runway of 18 months of your expenses. You should have written off all your loans. By written off, I mean paid off.
Paid off, yeah.
And dependency on your friends should be as low as possible. Because when I started out, half my friends stopped picking up my calls.
They thought you'll ask for money. Yeah. Happens. So what's your guilty pleasure when it comes to spending?
Guilty pleasure is I love a lot of branded stuff, like a watch, a branded watch, or branded belt, or branded shoes, or a branded pen. So Mobla is my favorite brand, which I keep going to whenever I want to spend money.
And if you could describe the current Indian investment landscape in one word, what would it be?
Dynamic.
Dynamic. Nice, yeah. So in a parallel universe, if you weren't in this field, what career do you think you would have pursued?
I think I would have been a painter.
So quick tip for individuals looking to make smart investment decision in today's market.
Analyze, do a deep dive before investing into anything. Take advice from people who are in the market. Don't just work on tips and don't just use your own mind. Read a lot. Do due diligence before investment.
And if you were describe Beacon Trusteeship in a single sentence, what would it be?
Innovative. So we've been innovating all along. In the last 7 years, we've done things that other trustees haven't been able to do in the last 25.
Lastly, I want to know, and I always ask from everyone, the young aspiring professionals who want to get into this particular field, what advice would you give them?
Which field? The trustee field?
Trustee field, yeah.
So from a young executive perspective, young people who want to enter the field, so you have 3 kinds of people who are required in a trustee. So one would be from a compliance perspective, so that's a company secretary. So those who are looking at a company secretary as a career, so trustee is a field that you can get a lot of training because a lot of deals come to your table.
Yeah.
And you can analyze those deals. You get a lot of knowledge. Second is the legal professionals. They should look at trustee as the next field to enter. So from a legal perspective, the trustee field is growing. The third one is operations. Operations field, even if you're a graduate, you can get into operations in a trustee. So these are the 3 basic kind of jobs that a trustee provides.
That's a good framework for the job wise, but what is your advice when they're entering this market? What would you tell them these youngsters should keep in mind?
So any youngster who wants to do a job should keep his mind open. They should do a lot of due diligence. I hate the word work-life balance.
It's not possible.
Yeah, it's not possible to get a great career without working your back off. So for the youngsters of today, that's my true advice. That don't look at the work hours for the initial 5 to 7 years at least. Later you can relax.
So thank you once again for joining us today on Let's Talk Business series. It was wonderful having you here, and I'm sure our viewers got great insights on the trustee front, and I look forward to have these conversations again.
Thank you so much for having me over. It was a pleasure and great talking to you.
Thank you.